Howdy, partners, and welcome to another stirring episode of Invisible Walls on GameTrailers.com. I'm your humble host, Shane Satterfield. Sitting alongside me today are Marcus Beer. Is Marcus Beer?
Yes, was, is, and will ever be Marcus Beer. I'm not going anywhere.
Ryan Stevens is also here today.
Howdy, partner.
Yeah, I'm sorry I skipped the whole cowboy thing.
I thought we were in this together.
The phrase "gay cowboys eating pudding" comes to mind.
I don't think that's a phrase.
It's actually it's from South Park.
Oh.
Well, today we do have an awesome show for you guys. 3 huge games we're going to talk about today at length. We're going to talk about Dark Souls, an extremely polarizing game. Some people love it, some people hate it. Which side are we on? You'll find out. We're going to talk about Rage, its first game in way too long. Another game that's kind of polarizing. A lot of people really seem to like it. Some people not so much. We're going to talk about Forza Motorsport.
Forza Motorhomes.
Motorboat with Connect support.
We're going to talk about Forza 4. And Bloodworth will be here to talk about that. We're going to pit him head-to-head against Gran Turismo 5. You definitely do not want to miss it. So we have an awesome lineup of games to talk about today. I think it's safe to say it's going to stay this way until the end of the year. So make sure you come back every week. But for now, let's get to it.
We fear for our love of roaring V8s and the smell of burnt rubber.
All right, folks. We know the economy's in the shitter. People are having problems finding jobs. Things are not easy out there right now. I know when you go to buy games, you want to make sure you get the most for your money. And we're about to talk about a game that I can't imagine would you give you any more per dollar than you're going to get from Forza 4. And here's Bloodworth here. You've been playing the game for 50, 60 hours. And what percentage are you at right now?
Within the career, I'm in 3.5%.
3.5% of the career after 60 hours.
What do? You play a trucker now or something?
But I haven't played the career that whole time though. The game has a lot of other features going on with it, you know. So like, and for the review, of course, I've got to try them all out. So like, I've been doing community stuff. I've been painting cars. I went through all the stupid Connect stuff.
Is it stupid?
For the most part, it's definitely not something you would buy a Connect for. It's like if you have a Connect, okay, a couple of things you might like.
So as somebody who just spent 90 minutes driving through the pouring rain to get to our studio today and had to deal with every Los Angeles citizen who can't fucking drive in the rain, I'm kind of over driving. Why should I play this game?
This in some ways
It's
this
car
game
porn.
Yeah, that's
Pretty much what
basically
it is.
I mean, Auto Vista, like you go through, you listen to Jeremy Clarkson talk about the cars, you look at all the dashboard. It also has challenge for each one of those cars. You actually can't look at all the cars until you do challenges for like 20 of them.
Now, are these just time trial challenges, or are they like Top Gear challenges where you get to race the space shuttle to the moon?
Auto Vista's challenges aren't that eccentric. They're pretty much just either a race or pass so many cars with that car. But it does give you a nice sampling of some of the high-end cars doing those. And I did do all those because that's how you get the Warthog.
Now, do you feel hopeless playing this game knowing that you've played that much and you're still so far away from finishing it?
No, because a lot of it it's almost like duplication. There are a lot of very similar events that are just kind of tailored towards the kind of cars you like. So, and that's actually something they've worked into the game too, is an affinity level as well as a driver level. So if you drive Ford cars a lot, or if you drive Lamborghinis a lot, your affinity level is going to go up. And every time you raise affinity level, you get discounts on upgrades for that car, and you get a credit bonus. And the higher you get, the higher that credit bonus gets to become, and eventually your upgrades are free. So you can just tweak that car out however you want without having to worry about paying for it.
Gotcha. Now, did they dole out the cars in a breadcrumb trail? Do they give them to you pretty frequently, or?
Yeah, that's actually something I think is pretty nice. Every time you get a driver level, they give you a selection of cars to pick from. So that way, as you're moving your way up through the career, then you're getting cars that are relative to where you're at in the career. So you don't have to, go out and spend your credits on a Prius or something that you're
Because
going
you
to
need to
use
be in
for
a
one
hybrid
race.
right? I hate
You
that.
know, and-
Why would somebody stick a fucking Prius in a driving game?
Honestly, the Prius from 0 to 60 is really fast.
Yeah,
That's
but then
only
but then
recently,
the
though.
brakes pack in and it doesn't stop.
The funny thing about it is I did try it just because like the audio in this game has been so good to like individual cars. So I like, what's a Prius sound like?
It doesn't.
Nothing.
It sounds like somebody turned the air conditioner on full blast. I had to get away from every other car to even hear it.
Do they have a smart car in there as well?
Look, they don't.
Now, here's the big question everybody wants to know. Which is better, Forza 4 or Gran Turismo 5? You reviewed both games. You're the only person who can...
For one, Forza is by far more consistent all around. I mean, you have about 500 cars that are all to the same detail as Gran Turismo's premium models, and they only had 200 cars, including the RUFs, which are basically, what they have to do for Porsche since they can't get the Porsche license.
Right.
And the driving model has improved immensely over Forza 3. I went back and played Forza 3 with the same car on the same track, and I felt like I was driving through Jello. And
Wow.
and this is pretty much the same setup. I had all the assist stuff and everything, and it's just they've made it way more responsive, way easier to get a feel for what the car's doing, so that you don't just suddenly spin out. Unless you're like really hammering on the gas, but if you're about to start spin out, you get a sense of that. You get some tire squeal, you get some sense of inertia. So you always feel like you have a really good handle on the car, and you have pretty extreme differences between, say like an El Camino or like a Lamborghini. Like you know that difference. So it's pretty sweet.
So Forza's the better game?
Yeah, I would say definitely on overall, and the things that Gran Turismo maybe still has in its favor for it just are probably in some of the track detail on certain tracks.
Yeah, because Forza's still a little bit sparse on the environments for tracks, right? The off-track stuff. It's better.
Yeah, it doesn't have any nighttime. It doesn't have any weather.
No nighttime racing.
Right.
That's a big deal.
So yeah, those are the things that I'm still missing from Forza, and they said that they wanted to focus on other things and keep it at 60 frames per second. So.
What about stuff like rally? Is there any rally in Forza?
No off-road. So
Go-karts?
Nope. So that's the thing. It's missing those kinds of things for a more on-track experience with
But it has some
road
wacky
cars.
stuff, you told me, right?
It does have bowling and
bowling?
soccer from Top Gear, yeah. Bowling
Now-
is actually kind of fun.
Now, trying to stay away from hyperbole, but going straight at hyperbole, would you say this is the greatest racing game ever released?
I'd say, yeah, overall. That's the thing. The racing genre just improves and improves and improves. So, yeah, I'll go with a yes on that.
All right, so next we're going to talk about a game that I honestly can't think of a game that's more polarizing than this one as far as people's absolute love for it and other people's absolute disdain for it, and that game is Dark Souls. Ryan, you loved Demon Souls.
But it took me a while.
To like Demon Souls?
Yeah, I don't think this is. I don't think it's a game that you naturally have to get right off the bat. And some of the issues that I had with Demon Souls are still present in Dark Souls, in that it's the game's a bit obtuse, and which we've talked about is the instruction manual sucks. The in-game tutorial is poor, though it is better. The game opens up much earlier and much. And it's just more open in general than Demon Souls was. Demon Souls, you basically had to beat the tutorial and the entire first level before it actually opened up with like leveling and being able to explore other areas. This time around, being a veteran of Demon Souls, I was able to jump into it, but some of the newer mechanics, like the kick and stuff like that, which sounds funny. It's like a kick,
I couldn't figure out how to do the kick.
It's the flick and the button. Yeah, it's still,
because it doesn't tell you how to do it. It just says hold the stick up and then hit R2.
R1 for the kick.
R1 for the
R2's the
kick,
jump.
R2 for
Yeah,
the
yeah,
jump,
yeah. It's still a little takes.
It doesn't tell you
It's
to
not.
flick it.
It's not a user friendly.
Yeah. That's true. Well, the
I'm
kick.
summoning
the
my
kick
my
and
blue
the-
phantom Justin Spear.
Yeah, here I am. I also like Dark Souls, but yeah, the kick and the jumping slash are not essential to getting through the tutorial, even
Or even the
essentially in the
run,
game.
the jump. Even the normal jump is a little weird.
Yeah, it's
And
a little
You have
weird.
to use it at actually, it's fairly optional throughout the game, but there's some good
Yeah.
stuff if you are willing to take a jump.
Well, for
Problem
the
is they don't tell you to
tutorial,
flick it. That's all they needed to say is flick the stick up.
No, but like I mean, I'm trying to be objective
all they had to
here.
say.
No, I'm trying to be objective here. I mean, even things like the parry and riposte, not from just the little message on the floor, it's a little hard to kind of understand like that kind of concept. And
Well,
it becomes a really powerful move if you are able to pull it off.
Well, it becomes essential ultimately.
no,
No,
not
not
really.
at all.
Blocking is always
yeah, I mean,
100% safer than parrying.
I'm not even
parrying
good at
will
the
get you
game.
killed.
I go for the first thing I did in that game before I even leveled was I bought a shield with 100% block and turtled myself up, and I knew how I would play the game.
Right.
Justin comes in and he's swashbuckling and plunging swords through dudes and crap like that.
you'll not be able to parry the huge bosses either.
what
It's
a
really
great
matter of
fucking
Well, that
game.
makes sense.
Right? I mean,
Yeah, it's great.
we got a couple copies in the office. Miguel's been playing it. Justin's put in some time. You played the 360 version a bit too, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, those bumpers. I want to try it a
It was
little.
a
bit. I'm
little.
curious.
I mean, it was weird to me being used to PS3, but it seems to run well on the 360. I think it's viable. You could do that.
The big changes from Demon Souls is that the game's just it's much larger this time around, and they've made it a completely interconnected world. And we were talking about this at lunch one day, but it actually really does pay dividends when you start linking the world together and see how it all actually fits somehow. It becomes this ambitious level design actually feels really rewarding and like getting from place to place. And the game does tip its hat, and you later on you are able to kind of warp around and make things traveling a bit easier. But it's just, I don't know, the first time I found like the elevator from like the church, this is pretty early on, like the elevator from the church back to the starting zone, I felt like amazed
Yahoo.
almost. And
Well, I mean,
it's not just
it's
because
really
it makes
cool
it easier, but
because-
yeah, it's a little hard to put your finger on it. But when a world seems just coherent, it pulls you out of the world less, and that's one of the things the game does. It tries to have explanations through the story for a lot of little things, and the first game did this too. But again, it's a little obtuse. Like if you actually read about in your inventory, you have the thing called the dark sign, and that's the reason that you're constantly reborn in this kind of shattered world. And they try to make sense of the game mechanics through game narrative, which it's nice because that kind of thing's usually set to the side when people kind of separate mechanics from the story and stuff like that. Combat's still pretty satisfying. They've definitely.
I think the combat's really good.
It feels like if Zelda.
Stamina is a big deal, or being able, when you decide to eat a hit or block, it'll take your stamina. When you swing, you're also taking stamina. So it's kind of hard to get out of the tutorial section without having a basic understanding of, I can't just block everything and then go
whacking and-
crazy after you've just blocked a ton of attacks. You have to let up on your guard, let your stamina recharge. So you really have to be careful about it. It's a really deliberate kind of combat, and it takes time to get used to. But
And I know one thing we were talking about, Shane, was the game at certain points, especially when you're being cautious, is you'll try to fight one enemy at a time. But no, that's a really valid thing to do, and it feels a little
Because
cheap.
here's
It feels
what I
like a
did.
little MMO, but the game definitely. I just want to say real quickly, it definitely is going to put you in situations where fighting multiple enemies at the same time is mandatory, and it's something you will have to deal with. So sometimes you want to, test your reflexes and your muscle out on the field, because there are boss situations and certain room situations where you will be tackling multiple foes at the same time. So it doesn't have to fall into that kind of that. That's one of the MMO kind of trenches that I don't really like, the whole pull and attack sort
I
of thing.
played the game for about 4 hours, and in all honesty, I felt like I got nowhere. In fact, for the first 90 minutes, 2 hours I played it, I did get nowhere, because I was going down into this graveyard fighting these enemies that were killing me in 3 or 4 slices. Now, I have not played Demon Souls, so I didn't have that information to fall back on to say, hey, well, I'm getting hit 3 times and dying, I shouldn't be fighting these guys. But to me, I shouldn't have to have played Demon Souls to jump into this game and sort of learn that. The game doesn't tell you, hey...
Well, actually, it sounds like almost you expect the game to be really difficult, and you're like, this is how the game is, and you don't realize you're throwing yourself against a brick wall. And I mean, it's not the only way to go at the beginning. I think the main path going up.
But see, I didn't find the main path. I found the path down to the
That's
graveyard.
true, but I mean, it's not as if it's hidden, and it is kind of an open area. So I mean, it is definitely possible to.
I
It's
did the
also
same
possible
thing,
to go
though.
down to the graveyard. You can get a lot of cool items. You can get some souls. You can level up off of it if you're able to make it out alive.
Or
So
you can get in too far and die and never get all this stuff back, and you just wasted 2 hours of your life.
the items you
Basically
pick
that.
up.
I mean,
Actually, the
or
items you
lose
pick
your
up
souls,
you'll keep.
which is what you use to level up.
That's true, but you can find items that you can consume for souls. You can find I think a decent sword down there as well. I mean, it's a place you can go, but you don't. It's
Yeah.
totally your decision and if you're good enough at the game, you totally can go down there right off the bat.
And to be fair, I did the same thing. The first thing I did was find those skeletons who don't even drop souls when you kill them. And I was like, wow, is the game? Did they really up the difficulty this much? And I went there a couple times, and then I was like, I don't think this is right. And this is something else I brought up with you, is that this game is meant to be connected. When you played, this game had crazy server problems in Japan when it launched, and for the review edition that thankfully we waited. The US launch has been smooth since the last patch, and that's where like the messages and stuff like that would probably help. And that's a big aspect of the game that like was kind of shut off at the very, very beginning because there wasn't anyone playing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with difficulty. In fact, I love difficult games. In fact,
you're the Ninja Gaiden master, right?
right, but the difference between Ninja Gaiden and this game, both games extremely difficult. To me, and in my opinion, Ninja Gaiden gives you the tools to deal with the difficulty. I feel like when I die in Ninja Gaiden, it's my fault. And I did something wrong, and there's something in the game that will help me do that. And in my opinion, Dark Souls feels clunky. I feel like I'm not given an adequate set, and I'm sure you guys think I'm crazy.
I think you
'cause
just need to get
played
used to it. It's like if you pick up a difficult book and you're like, oh, this is like trying to read Paradise Lost or whatever. You're not used to this style. Like what the hell? But you have to
But no,
overcome
I-
that barrier to get to the
Again, it goes
actual
back to
game
the
or the
I have
actual
no
work.
problem with difficult games. I grew up playing games. In fact, the games now are so easy compared to the games that we grew up playing that it's kind of disappointing, in all honesty, when you get a checkpoint after you walk every 3 feet in most games these days. And we'll get to that with Rage in a little bit as well, because I think Rage has a little bit of that old school flavor as well. But again, I just... like, for instance, what I started doing with the skeletons was, okay, I figured out they're hard to beat. So what I would do is I would look at them, and I'd start inching forward until you get into that zone where they become alerted, and they start running at you. So they'd start running at me. I'd turn around, run away, get way far away from where they started, and kind of use glitching to get them in uncompromising positions to kill them. So I get them back into this like big water garden. They'd get confused. They get caught on a piece of geometry, and then I'd go back to the doorway and I'd kill them without them being able to hit me. And I felt like that shouldn't be the case. I felt like I should be empowered enough, especially in the first 90 minutes of the game, to be able to handle those enemies with the tools that the game
You
has
handle
given
them
me.
by turning around and going the other way.
Yeah. I
But-
mean, that's pretty much it. Is that
Or
it
if
is-
you're
it is-
supernaturally
to me,
skilled at the
it's
game.
poor
Well, this
design.
is it's also a
open
game where you
world.
run into an enemy. This real quick, you run into an enemy and they seem like there's these guys with a shield and a spear, and they're extremely difficult to figure out how to get past them. Their defense seems like really impenetrable. If you circle around them, they just keep turning. Eventually, you will figure out a small trick to fighting this enemy, and when you see him the next time, you murder him instantly. It's not a matter of being a higher soul level. It's a matter of you've learned this little trick. You understand when he'll do this animation, how to do that. It's really, you have to have knowledge. You have to have experience, and it's not really leveling up in that game that lets you progress through it. It's getting knowledge of the level, what will kill you, what the enemies will do, what they'll respond to, and you eventually learn that. But you can only get it through knowledge. It's not simply
But where do you
hitting
get the
button
knowledge?
fast
That's the
enough.
very start of the game.
You
And
get
the
it-
instruction book is
You
like
get
2
it by
pages.
fighting the enemies. That's the only way
and
to do
dying
it.
over and over for 90 minutes until...
If you're really cautious, you will die less. I mean, it's
Well, yeah, that's the way everything works in life.
Well,
If
but
you're
I
really
mean,
cautious, you don't get
it's
punished
it's
as
worth
much.
it though. I mean,
Yeah,
the game's not like
when you- when
okay,
you
kill
beat-
these
when you
guys.
finally
Okay, I
beat a
think you're good
boss-
enough to kill
When
that.
you finally
you know.
beat a boss, you start linking things together. It really comes together as a full thing. And we didn't even talk about some of the crazy online stuff or the kind of just weird mysteries that are like wrapped in this
there's a
game.
lot-
But
yeah,
it's,
there's
it's,
a lot
it's
to
deeply
it.
satisfying.
There's a
Right,
lot
but I
there.
think there's a huge segment of people that will never get past all this other stuff we're talking about to get to that stuff.
I mean, there's
now,
a
I'm right
lot
now
of-
where I'm sitting. I've played about 4 hours of it. I'm like, am I going to go back and play it? I don't know.
Well, I
It's
don't
hard
think that's
during
a
review
flaw.
season.
I don't
Yeah, I
think
mean,
it's a
now,
flaw
obviously
if
not.
everyone. It's not a flaw if everyone can enjoy it. Everyone is not going to enjoy every great work of literature or every great
No, but
painting.
but we're talking about people that will hate this game. Not like, oh, this isn't for me. I don't want to spend $60 on it. There are people that will play this game for an hour and fucking
Well,
hate it.
I've read stuff in high school that's like, you're forced to read, and I'm like, what is this shit? I fucking hate it. I don't like. Who's the dude that wrote Wuthering Heights? And I was not a fan of that guy, but Sometimes you have to overcome
it
a
was a
barrier
woman.
to get to the value. It's okay if not everyone gets it.
Bronte.
No, I mean I get that, but I think what we need to talk about is
Good
when you
Kate
go to
Bush song.
review a game like this, it's very difficult because it has been created for a pretty small segment of people.
Well, I think as a critic, your job is to get over that barrier and fairly evaluate it.
Right. Well, if I'm fairly evaluating it and I get nowhere in the first 2 hours I play the game, then to me that's a shitty game.
You got to get over the barrier.
All right,
But-
last word to Ryan, because he's the champion of Demon Souls. Is it too hard? Is it too unforgiving? Would I like it?
It definitely gets frustrating, and I had the same issues with Demon Souls. It just at a certain point it will click with you.
I mean, that's the bottom line. If you like Demon Souls, you're going to love this game. If you didn't like
It
Demon
took
Souls,
me a
you're
whi-
actually going to like this one even
It
less.
took me a while to get into Demon Souls, but this is fundamentally a better game because of its design decisions. And I would say it is harder than the first game, but I don't think it's to a point like where it's actually an unstoppable barrier due to some smart design choices with things like how leveling works and with weapons.
I've got a plan that might get us both out of this mess.
All right, here we go. It's been a long, long time coming. Finally, we're able to talk about Rage. I reviewed the game, so my opinion's pretty much out there. Reviews kind of all over the place for this one.
Yeah, there's been some low ones down in the 50s,
Which is insane.
That's just absolutely floopy. And
That's
then there's-
basically just fishing for web hits.
Yeah, and then there's been
Hits.
some in the 9.5s to 10s, which I would say go to the other extreme.
Little
and they're
generous.
just little, yeah. I've been playing the game, not as much as you, but yeah, I played the game. Spent a lot of time, in particular on Saturday, playing it. Gotta say, first 2 hours, what the fuck were they thinking?
Yeah, I don't know. That
It was.
They've gone on record. There's a God, I can't remember where I read it. There was a Tim Willits interview where he mentions he has triplets, which I thought was also kind of weird. But sorry, but he said that they basically like lead you around by the nose for the first couple hours. And I've only played the first couple hours of the game, and going into it knowing that it was going to be with this prior knowledge, knowing that it was going to be a little shitty. I actually thought it wasn't that bad.
well, yeah, it's not bad.
Except
it
it goes
starts-
on for
it's-
too long.
Yeah, it goes on too long, and it just starts the game off slow, which is not what I think anyone would expect from a game like that.
Yeah, it was way too slow, and it's kind of just threw me. I mean, normally when you're playing an id game, they drop you in it, give
That's
you a
what I'm
gun,
saying.
and say, "There you go, shoot."
Right.
But this time they attempt to do a story, which
Well, Doom 3 was like this too.
Yeah, you're right. The early moments.
Doom
of
3 does
3
not
were-
feel like an id game at all, though.
Yeah.
For a while.
yeah, well,
Well, I'd say this one doesn't feel like an id game at all, other than the shotgun.
But yeah, they attempt this story, and I gotta say the story is it's not really what you sign up for. There are good things in the game. I'm not saying it's a bad game. Before I get another round of Twitter abuse from a bunch of people after one of the VPs at Bethesda retweeted that I said it didn't deserve a 9.5. I got a bunch of abuse from some smegpots. The game looks great. I think the engine is phenomenal, unless you're playing it on an ATI card on the PC. So
And
sorry.
it won't work.
Yeah, where you end up with a major pop-ins, and
Yeah,
it looks
the
like
poor PC folks on this game really got shanked.
well, the NVIDIA cards seem to be working fine, but ATI have actually released a Rage
New
patch.
driver, right?
Yeah, new drivers. So we'll see how that goes. I haven't played the PC version yet. I'm still waiting, till the new rig next week. But yeah, I'm kind of stunned at the way. Let's step away from the game for a second. I'm kind of stunned at the way Bethesda's gone about this, and id has gone about this. They embargoed reviews until, was it midnight Eastern time on
The night
before the game?
Which essentially it was on sale on the East Coast at that point.
Yeah, which
minus a couple hours or whatever.
that
Or actually,
sends-
no, it was on sale at that point.
Yeah, that sends such the wrong message. It makes people think, oh shit, this is supposed to be a AAA game, one of the big blockbusters of the fall. What is Bethesda afraid of?
No, but this is normal, dude.
Yeah, truth be
this
told,
is
that's not
really,
that out of the
really, really
ordinary.
normal.
Dude, there are normal. If you have a game that you think is going to do really well, you have the first
Doesn't-
review hit the Friday beforehand,
And they did with their exclusive reviews.
and then but everybody else, their reviews hit on the Sunday, the Monday, first thing Monday morning,
This
not
hasn't been
midnight
that-
the day of launch.
Dude, it hasn't been
Yeah,
that way
it
for a
doesn't work
long
for us
time.
that very
Well,
often.
You've been
that's-
out of
that's
the
the
PR
way-
game for a while.
That's
then.
well, no, I was.
But let's
I've been
talk
out of it
about
for
the
a
game
year.
because the game isn't bad. The game is really good. So obviously, it didn't have anything to be afraid of. It's not like the game doesn't hold up in quality. I think where the issues are coming with this game, and some people giving it lower scores, is I think that honestly a lot of people had preconceived notions about what it was supposed to be. They're like, oh, this is a hardcore RPG. This is like Fallout. This is like Borderlands. And I feel like when they didn't get the depth of role-playing that they expected from the game, then suddenly I think that they just kind of wrote the whole thing off. Now, to me, it's a perfect mix for me. I used to play RPGs when I was younger. I've kind of grown away from them over time. I still enjoy some of those elements. And to me, it had just the right amount of that stuff in it. And the shooting, to me, the actual gameplay.
See, I don't consider it an RPG at all.
No, well, no.
Well, we can go into this conversation as well, because I feel like people who say this isn't an RPG at all are falling into the tropes of what makes an RPG. So what makes it? Why do you feel it's not an RPG?
I would just say,
or even an RPG at all?
I would say, genres are getting really, really cloudy and really,
Right.
really stupid. But RPG in air quotes, I would say, I would say statistics become a major part of it.
Yep. See, I think that's bullshit.
Or
Some form
or
of
I
leveling
think
up.
because they
no,
don't go
no,
from
or-
level 4 to level 5. That's bullshit.
or
Because what happens when
character molding.
I would agree with that. You don't have any input on how your character looks in this game.
Well, you, get
don't
to
make
choose,
any
you
decisions.
get to choose the uniform.
I mean, but like
Which has different
acquiring,
bonuses.
The armors, yeah.
acquiring weapons is, you did that in Wolfenstein, you did that in Doom.
But
you
no,
did that
you level these weapons up. You also have crafting.
I
in
mean,
this
but
game.
this was the same
let
argument
me
you made with
speak,
Bioshock.
Ryan, let me speak.
Okay.
So what's the difference between going from level 4 to level 5, and all of a sudden your fireball that you were firing at level 4, instead of doing 10 points of damage, now does 12 points of damage? What's the difference in that in constructing or crafting new ammo for your guns? So now that bullet that you were shooting did 12 points of damage. Now it does 12. What is the difference? It's a trope.
If you get to choose that you are the one making your fireball get better, if you choose that's the way you want to meld your character, that's where I think the
But you
difference
can,
is.
because you collect all this stuff, and you can choose what you want to craft. You can use those in those parts.
But you're not really investing, right? Like, you can make that ammo at any time, no matter what you do, right?
No,
as
you
long
have
as
to-
you
you
have
have
to- you
as
have
long
to
as
get
you have
the
the parts.
schematics.
You have to get the parts, but those parts carry across multiple things. So a sentry bot uses a lot of the same parts as a sentry turret. So you have to make that decision. Do I want to invest these parts that I've collected in creating a sentry bot, or do I want to create a sentry turret? Do I want to
Okay, I could see how that's kind of an RPG mechanic, but I don't really think it kind of lends itself to, like you say, the tropes of like an actual making it an RPG, just because it happens to have a mechanic that kind of falls into that kind of
But it's crafting.
category.
Look,
Crafting is a big part of RPGs.
id never said that they were making an RPG.
Right, and
I'm
was-
saying this
is
but
an RPG.
what
Right.
they did boast, and what they've been saying from the get-go, is that this is a huge open world game.
But then they say id Tech Engine 5 is not an open world engine, so there was a lot of mixed
So
messages.
I mean, that is
I
what
just think people get caught up on stupid bullshit.
marketing
When the
crap.
bottom line is that you're doing the same damn thing. It's just not labeled as such.
if I was going after them for anything, I wasn't expecting it to be an RPG. They do have some very, very, very small RPG-like elements. The crafting, selecting of armor, upgrading your truck. But I mean,
But upgrading everything in the game.
But for me, the RPG element also comes from strong character interaction, having a control over your character and options and dialogue.
see, that's only been
that allow you
recently
to
in
go-
RPGs.
to play.
well,
There's- there are
Western RPGs have been like that from the
There's
get-go.
only a
JRPGs
handful of games
not
that
so
do
much.
that. Most RPGs do not let you choose the path through the story. They do not let you go through a dialogue tree. There's a
They
very
do
select.
now.
There's a very select group of games that do that. There's a handful of them. There's
The-
still
the-
hundreds of RPGs pouring out of Japan that don't let you do that.
And those keep on pouring.
Well,
Look,
that's
I'm
why
not even
genres
getting.
are
I'm not
stupid,
even
'cause
getting.
then you
I'm
go
not even getting.
JRPG versus
Yeah,
Western
I'm not even
RPG.
going
I
into
mean,
that
it's all-
one. I'm
it's
talking
all
about the
silly.
ones that
Right,
sell
but you're
over here.
saying that there's no RPG elements in it. I completely disagree. I don't think it is an RPG, but I think for people who maybe aren't big fans of RPGs, that this has the perfect amount of customization and improving your character for them to maybe it turns into a gateway game that gets them into other RPGs that are a little deeper, like a Fallout or whatever. And then to me, again, I'm a big gameplay guy. I've said it on the show a billion times. I take gameplay over all the other bullshit any day of the week, and that's where Rage rules. The gunplay in this game, I fucking love it. And why do I love it? It's because the enemy AI. I've never played a game like this where every single battle you have no idea what's going to happen. The closest thing I can remember to something being similar to this was the first time I played Halo.
That's a good sign.
And you had no idea what was going to happen with the enemies in that game. And Bungie's talked about how we tried to build the game 15 minutes at a time. The way the enemies react in this game, every battle is different. They never do the same thing twice. I reloaded levels to see if they would do the same thing twice. They don't. You get in these big battle arenas where you watch the enemies, they're crawling over the environments intelligently, diving over benches, jumping up on the ceiling, climbing. They never just run straight at you. And so
That's really good because, like when Justin was playing it, when we played it at TGS, I was concerned, but they must have had it on easy or something.
Dude,
because it looked like a shooting gallery.
The
No
AI
way
is
at
very
all.
impressive. In fact, the only things
You're
that
playing
happen
on normal or hard?
playing
or
normal.
Normal,
well,
okay.
the only things that happen repeatedly is the voices.
Right.
They say
The
the
enemies
same things
get a little
time
repetitive.
and time again.
But the other part, too, that keeps the game from turning into a grind is that a big part of the game is going to these bandit hideouts and trying to steal their technology so you can use it for yourself. Well, every single group of these bandits, they're all different from each other, and they all have different technology. So every time you go to a bandit hideout, the way you play through that level is completely different. Sometimes you go and they're just like, they're humanoids and they just rush at you, and but then other times you have guys that are mechanicized. So you need to use like your EMP weapons. You need to find the weak spot on their armor. So sometimes the levels are run and gun, run in with your shotgun, take everything out. Other times you have to be very calculated, use your cover, plot, look for sight lines to try to get shots on people, because if you pop out, you get killed. I just played Gears of War 3, and I got 2/3 of the way through that game, and I was like, oh my God, not another room where I come in, all the guys flood in, I hide behind a box, they hide behind a box, and we play hide and seek for 10 minutes. I kill them, go into the next room, rinse and repeat. This game is not like that at all. I never, ever got tired of the combat in this game all the way to the end. So,
They
But
do
would
it.
it be
They,
safe to say from what you're saying that depending on the gang you're going up against, even though their techniques may change from load to load, like they have maybe a certain flavor of AI depending on the gang?
oh yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
They do a good job of making sure that, the first time you encounter a particular enemy, you have the right weapon for the job. So you're not going in, especially in sort of like the first 4 or 5 hours, and you're going in against a bunch of guys. For example, when you're doing the the car bomb guys, and you have to take those guys away. You make sure that you find a kick-ass rifle that's such an upgrade over your automatic rifle that you can then take down some of the heavily armored guys with miniguns. So they do that very well. I gotta say, props to them for finally getting rid of the id trope that is the monster closet.
Yep.
No more monster closets.
This game doesn't feel like an id game to me at all.
But you said it had some old school design stuff.
Well, yeah,
What would you say that is?
well, it's pretty linear for one. There's not much, but I mean,
When you're actually in a hideout, you mean, as
Yeah.
opposed to the world? Okay,
yeah, I
can
mean,
see
it's
that.
a lot like a Call of Duty or something like that. There's not a lot of open areas to fight because the open world is outside, and pretty much all you do out there is fighting your buggy. Because if you get out of your buggy, you get destroyed. So most of the levels are pretty confined, pretty linear. There's stuff hidden in there, obviously, because you need to find all the
lock
parts
grinder
and-
stuff.
Right, you need to find all the parts to build and craft all your stuff. But I think the biggest complaint, the story, completely forgettable.
The characters that you deal with are really quite generic, but the
Yeah.
characterizations, the facial animation, the actual engine itself, some pop in on the 360. Obviously, like I said, we talked about the PC issues. I think the Rage engine is going to be phenomenal. I can't wait to see what happens. And I've said this before. id are a great tech company that have been missing a really awesome game designer for a while. So I would love to see, for my own selfish reasons, what Fallout 4 would look like with this engine.
Well, I would like
it
to
would
play
be a
Fallout 4 with this gameplay.
It
like,
would take a 20. Well, then it wouldn't be an RPG.
but why wouldn't it be an RPG?
All right, we've gone through that time and time again. Do I think that it's
No,
perhaps a
why
9 or-
would it not be an RPG if it had that gameplay? I can't understand that concept.
Well, because it doesn't have enough RPG.
Because
to
you
be
have
an
to be
RPG.
dislocated from your character for it to be an RPG?
No, not dislocate. You have to be able to, like I said, for it to be an RPG in my book. And that's why I'm not criticizing Rage for not being an RPG. I never expected it to be that.
But
So
I
this
can
isn't a
understand.
criticism.
It's like you're falling into a stereotype. You're saying the combat has to be this way to be an RPG. I completely
I'm not.
disagree.
No, I didn't say combat. I was talking
That's
about
what we were
gameplay. I was
talking
talking
about.
about just gameplay in general in
Well,
the
I
game.
said, what if Fallout had the gunplay from Rage?
I thought you
and
said-
that would mean
I
it would
thought you
not be
said
an RPG?
Gameplay.
Gunplay.
So
No, I said
I misheard
gunplay.
you. So yeah, I mean, do I like VATS? Absolutely. Would it be great if they incorporated that? Yeah. You see, Borderlands did that to a certain degree and pulled that off. So that might be an interesting way forward. It would probably take it way further away from the poor purists, I think, than a lot of people would like.
But I think a lot of people didn't like VATS. They didn't like the fact that you could have your reticle on someone's head and it would completely miss the enemy. I mean, I think there's a large camp of people that would like immediate combat.
You don't have to use
with
VATS
all the other stuff wrapped
and you also
around it.
don't have to use VATS in Fallout. You can just go and blast away at people, and it's just a little more perhaps realistic. Bottom line, I think Rage is a very good game. I don't think it's an ultra brilliant game. I've seen, personally, I would have scored it 8-ish. I think the driving can be fun. They do it better, perhaps, than Borderlands.
The driving multiplayer is awesome, by the way. We didn't even
just,
mention that. I've been playing it ever since I got the game at night. Like, it's like Mario Kart, but much more gritty and much more involved, I guess.
I will say, I think Bethesda were a little overly cautious with regards to holding their reviews back so late. I think it caused a lot of people to get a little bit uncomfortable.
I would say if you like shooting gameplay, go buy Rage. Don't think twice. Don't listen to all the haters. This game is fun to play, and I play games to have fun. So
just drink through the first 2 hours. That's all. The first couple of hours, they're just a little slow, but it does pick up.
They're not that bad.
But when you start getting the big rifles and the big shotguns, and you go through Mutant Bash for the first time, then it does start to pick up, and it's like, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a great game. I think you should go buy it.
Slam home, and he draws the foul. A chance for another point at the free throw line.
Well, that was a dynamic two-hand dunk there.
So it's been a while since we've heard from our old pal, Grumpy McGrump, but something has raised his ire, and he is here to talk to you about it today.
Is it Wuthering Heights?
It is. It is. I hated that song by Kate Bush.
I love Kate Bush.
No, it's actually it's something.
There's no sex in your violence.
Yeah.
Oh wait.
I like my women how I like my White House, no Bush. All right. Anyway, what I'm going to rant about today is this is something that's sort of like crept up on us the last sort of like 12, 18 months, and it's been put out there under the pretext of being environmentally friendly, and it's a bunch of horseshit.
We're saving the planet.
Yeah, we're saving them one instruction booklet at a time. It's basically how the instruction manual has gone from being a staple of any video game you buy to give you a backstory, to give you the full control schematic, to give you a little bit of intro into the into the weapons or whatever you're doing, to being replaced with a one-page pamphlet with, and then if you're lucky you'll get a season pass invitation attached to it, and I just I don't like it. I like having my instruction manuals, and
it's bullshit, man.
EA and Ubisoft are the prime culprits here, and I gotta say I was actually pleasantly surprised when I opened Rage last week, and it came not only with an instruction manual. This was the basic version of the game.
It had maps.
The manual had maps, and it had guides to the weapons.
Yeah.
Who'd have fucking thunk it?
Yeah.
So yeah, I just
Have you played Dark Souls yet?
No, I haven't played Dark Souls yet, but I just think the guys from Software are sadists. But no, I just like to get back to us having these manuals, because for me it's something I've always enjoyed reading when I was installing a game on the PC.
Well, I like it when I drive home from a store. I'd stop at a stoplight, I'd pull out the instruction manual, get me all hyped, ready to play the game. So as soon as I got home, I could toss it in the machine and go at it.
Yeah, I mean they're being replaced nowadays with cutscenes that a lot of them, the cutscenes are just wank, and I just want to hark back to an older, better time where you come and you'd get slap your $60 down, you get a hefty feel on your the game's case, because there's a manual inside, there's a map inside, and I mean mostly the RPGs are still doing it.
But Dark Souls, it's what, like 2 pages, but then it's in like 80 languages, so it's like
it's
huge.
more pages than like an EA or an Ubi, but it's this is the problem with Dark Souls, is the same one you have if you look through an EA or an Ubi. The information they decide to put in there is so like
bizarre. Yeah.
It's like, we have to tell you how to eject the disc,
right,
but we won't explain
legally
any of the multiplayer except you need to have Xbox Live Gold to play it. Like, yeah, I think there's some weird like.
Well, it's a crazy complicated game. I mean, plus the verbiage in that game is like.
Oh no, I'm talking about the EA and the Ubi stuff. I mean the Dark Souls one's.
Oh, and the
trash,
epilepsy. There's the epilepsy warning as well. Don't forget that.
Yeah, but like some of them are completely devoid of any content that would differentiate the game from any other game. It would be like, this button starts the game, this button selects things on the menus, and like maybe something will say fire your gun, but like you don't even get the stupid little paragraph of plot.
I know you don't get that. It's crazy. Like,
in like anything.
Yeah, and
I mean, I go back to it, like, remember when I was a little kid and like Legend of Zelda, it had the cool little artwork of like Link talking to, because that game was so like abstract. I mean, for the time, you were like, oh, so that's what that old man and the old lady look like. Oh, okay,
The crazy part is games have become more complicated over time, and they're cutting back on their explanation even more.
They're getting cheap. They're getting lazy. They don't want to pay a designer to do it. They don't even put it on a PDF anymore for the
Well, I think
PCs.
Ubi is putting. They are Ubi. Maybe
they're
wrong
online.
on this. They're going to be
no.
It's going to be on the disc, right? Like there's online manuals on the disc or something like that.
It won't be long until you're just going to have the controller schematic on the back of the box, and there won't be anything inside it.
Yeah, except the season pass.
Stopped in their tracks.
So that's it for episode 180. I'm disappointed. I feel like I could have talked about Dark Souls and Rage for the next 5 hours, because I just feel like they're games that just kind of straddle that line between preconceptions and accepted notions. And
Look, don't go saying this now, because then everybody will be saying, "Oh, why don't you do a 5-hour Invisible Walls?" I'd listen to it.
That's never happening.
And our editing crew would have strokes.
But it was good to get back some spirited discussion on the show. It's been a while. Everything's just been kind of vanilla for a while.
I'm upset I missed the Damiani
Bloodworth throwdown.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was much of a throwdown, so to speak, but it is good to
Legendary.
get some spirited discussion back on the show. We definitely had some of that today. And Marcus, actually, before we go, has a very special announcement to make.
Yeah, I want to talk quickly about something called G3, which is a gaming and giving for good. And it's basically an event that happened last Saturday, part of Extra Life, which is a great charity here in the US that gives to a bunch of hospitals. And I basically signed up for this 48 hours before, and it was basically just spending all day Saturday, October the 1st, playing on my 360. And I got a bunch of friends to sponsor me, and I raised basically $1,000 for the LA Children's Hospital.
That's awesome.
But I also want to throw this out there that they're keeping our sponsor pages up until I think the 1st of November. So there's a link on the screen right now, and if you go and search for Marcus Beer, you'll see my sponsor page. So if you can afford a couple of dollars, it's for a very, very good cause. I mean, it basically makes children's lives in these hospitals a little easier. It helps pay for rooms so the parents can come stay. It puts a Wii in their hands, or a DS or whatever. Ryan's being perverted next to me. Thanks for spoiling it, Ryan.
I was thinking of something completely unrelated.
But yeah, it's a good cause, and this time of year, there's going to be kids who are going to be in hospital over Christmas who are not going to have a lot of money, and so it also gets them some gifts and stuff. So if you can spare a couple of dollars, it'd be very much appreciated. A lot of people have already given, and I very much thank those guys. So that was just what I wanted to say today.
And just to jump in quickly here, people, I can't really tell you how good it feels to help other people. The feeling that you get when you donate to a good cause, like I could play 20 video games and it won't make me feel as good as it does when I help other human beings.
It's like setting off 2 nukes.
It's crazy. I mean, it's being a human, right? It's those chemicals in your body that are pushed out whenever you do something good.
Dopamine.
Like, go for that feeling, folks. It's worth it. So make sure you support Marcus in this. Also, it helps our industry, right? There's a lot of stereotypes about our industry, a lot of negative stereotypes, in all honesty. It's good when we have a chance to do something like this and help people, and when they know it's coming from gaming at large. So jump on there, help the cause, help the kids, make their holidays awesome. Invisible Walls is up and out.